everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, super stoked because we are joined by former senior advisor to President Trump, New York Times best-selling author, and of course, my brother-in-law, Jared Kushner. Jared, welcome to the show. I got to tell you, I've been trying to figure out a way to hook you into coming on this show for a long time. And I said, you know what? Jared's got a new book out. Maybe we can get him on. We're going to lay it all out for people. I mean, are we going to break the internet, do you think, with this?
Well, I definitely, but I think the part of my introduction you missed is the officiant of your wedding. So that I thought would have been the leading one, but that's
so
still
true.
highest on my resume. So
Yeah.
and very, very proud of the marriage and everything you guys do. You guys are a very special couple and an incredible. So.
Thank you. Well, right back at you. Great. I mean, can't ask for a better brother-in-law. And of course, as you pointed out, people may not know that you officiated my wedding with Eric. Only time I've ever been married. So Jared, I feel like you've got a great track record so far for both of us. So we'll have to say thank you to you on that. But of course, I did reference your new book, Breaking History. It has come out, New York Times bestseller, as I mentioned. I do want to talk about that. But since we're talking about marriages, you, of course, are married to the Ivanka Trump. Everybody, I'm sure, out there wants to know, how did you and Ivanka first meet? Because I don't even know if I know this.
Basically, we met. We were both in New York. We were young at the time. I think about 25 years old, and she was doing her clothing company, her jewelry company, working with her father. I think she was getting involved in the different real estate businesses at the time. And I was also in New York. I bought a newspaper. I was starting to buy some buildings there, and we were just two young people looking to do business there. And so two friends, both named Moshe, actually introduced us for lunch, and I was excited to meet her. I'd obviously read about her and knew that she was somebody who was beautiful. I didn't know obviously how engaging her personality would be. We had a nice lunch, and then a couple weeks later, she reached out and said, "Let's get lunch again." I said, "Oh, this could be interesting." And that second lunch started with just the two of us. We kept calling our assistants and canceling our next meetings, and it ended up going on for about 3-4 hours. And so it was really, really nice. And I always tell people that with Ivanka, if I wasn't so attracted to her, she'd just be my best friend. And so she's a great partner. She's an amazing wife, incredible mother. And we had a lot of fun. And I actually write about in the book some of our courtship and some of the interesting stories, which were fun as to how that came about.
Yeah, well, obviously, 3 kids later, 3 beautiful children later, here you guys are. And I think it is the key whenever you first start to date someone. I know for me and Eric, when we first went out on our first official date as well, I don't even think we ordered food for like 3 or 4 hours. I was starving, but the conversation was so good that we just sat there. We didn't even realize it. That's how you know, like, you're really in it and you've really got something good going on. And I've told the story, Jared, so often. I mean, you and I are kind of a unique couple of people because no one can totally relate to the Trump family, I think, like the two of us can. I mean, having been people that were not officially part of the family, we are now. Obviously, man, have we all been through a lot together. You and I love the whole thing though during the campaign in 2016, where it was so funny because you and I and Vanessa, Don's ex-wife, would always end up together in one little section for all the debates. We were like the unofficial debate cheerleaders. I loved it.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. And I think one thing we both learned with the Trumps is that, and obviously we both fell in love with different Trumps, but they're all incredibly special. But it comes with a very interesting family, and I admire so much about all of them. But obviously the relationship that Ivanka has with her brothers, and also with Tiffany and Barron is really, really close, and it really is a very close crew. And I think that campaign brought everyone closer together. I remember when Trump was in New Hampshire on the last night of the campaign, where that was supposed to be his last stop, but then we added another one in Michigan. I think that started at 1 a.m. on election day. But he basically says, Hillary's got all these rap artists and all these musicians and all these politicians. I just have my family. And that campaign really was the family. And one thing, with you, I mean, you obviously were barnstorming North Carolina on a bus, leading women for Trump, and doing so much. We were all doing whatever we could to make things happen. But I'll never forget the night of the campaign, and I write about this part in my book about how we got the exit polls, and they were looking very ugly. Like basically, it was going to be a landslide for Hillary. And Donald had me promised that once I got them, I'd call him. So I call him up and I said, well, Donald, it's not looking great, but Stephanie thinks the methodology's wrong, and your people vote late because they're working class, and let's see, maybe it's going to be for the best, right? And he basically, I just told him he lost, and what he said was very cool, because he said, Jared, I'm very proud of the job we did. We left it all on the field. There's nothing more that we could have done. Let's just have some fun tonight, as a family, and really enjoy. It's amazing that I won the primary, that we got this far. But win or lose, we did a great job. And what was funny is after that, I think Boris Epstein at the time was running a lot of the outreach, and Boris started calling all the radio stations and getting yourself and Eric and Don and Ivanka, and I think Rudy onto whatever drive time radio we can get. And even Donald was calling into some of them, and he kept calling Hope, saying, Hope, can you call the producer and tell them that it's actually me? I'm calling the number you gave me, but they don't believe it's me.
And we're like, yeah, right.
Yeah, so they'd be hanging up on Don to take Ivanka, like it was like very funny. But from really till the very end, the family did an incredible job. And even the years in government and working with you together on the campaign just brought everyone so much closer together. And so sometimes situations like that get family fighting with each other, but I think the testament to the trust and the relationship we all had with each other, where we were able to delegate responsibility, come to each other for guidance. I know you were an amazingly important advisor to me with all the things I was working on, and really was a very special experience. So very, very grateful to have this family.
Amen. I mean, it's so true. And I think people, I think it's obvious to most people how close we really are all as a family, because you're right. I think a lot of times to go through such a stressful endeavor, I mean, my gosh, a presidential campaign, most people will never fully appreciate what that's all about. But then we all really did play such integral roles. And I think especially in 2016, we were kind of figuring things out as we went in so many respects. Like you're saying, that's so funny. That story on election night, I think it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. I remember I went back to get ready for whatever was going to happen that night. And I was there like in my bathroom, changing clothes, putting on makeup. And I remember people calling me, somebody called me and they said, you've got to do radio while you're getting ready too. And we did, we did everything up until the last minute. We really were fully in it. We did it all as a family. And I do love how close I think it all brought us, because sometimes, when it feels like everyone else is against you, all you have is your family. And I feel like for, a lot of key moments, we have all felt that so much. And I mean, gosh, I just have to tell you, Jared, how grateful I have always been for your guidance. You've been such an incredible role model and part of, I think, the campaign, the administration, the entire family. And so I think, this book that you have that I feel like everybody should read really does give a different accounting, I'm sure, than what so many have heard out there about a lot of what happened during the campaign, your time in government. But why did you decide? Is that why you ultimately decided to write this book?
So, I kind of felt in Washington that it was very hard to both be, maybe for me, maybe for others it was easier, but I felt like it was very, very hard to allocate the time to do the talking, because there was just so much to do. So we were spending the time doing, and there was just so much to do, right? I write in the book about our work in the Middle East, about how President Trump brought around 6 peace deals. I write about how during the pandemic he got all the bureaucrats out of the way, overruled a lot of their recommendations, and pushed to bring in the private sector and the military to get the fastest vaccine in history, and ramp up testing and supplies and all these things that everyone said couldn't be done. I write about how he got historic criminal justice reform done, something that even President Obama tried to do and couldn't, and he ended up passing it with 87 votes as a bipartisan accomplishment. I write about his interactions with world leaders, with President Xi, with President Putin, with Kim Jong-un, and then also the trade deals, how he dealt with Mexico and Japan and South Korea and China and Canada to try to bring jobs back to America. So, when President Trump won, the media during the campaign in 2016 were saying that he would cause World War III and that he would crash the economy, but the results were much different. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of self-awareness or even the desire to say, hey, maybe we were wrong about this. Instead of, keeping an open mind, they just fought him from day one, which distorted a lot of the coverage of it. And in this book, what I tried to do was really tell the story about how somebody who obviously was very successful in business beforehand, but was a real outsider. Again, he did things very differently. And maybe it was because he did things so differently, it drove the media and the Washington establishment so crazy. But I also think that's why he got so many things done. And so, one of the great conundrums for, the Trump haters is, they say he's so awful and they don't like the way he talks or the way he acts, but he accomplished so many things. And so what I would say to those people is that this is an interesting book to read because I want you to understand how he got things done. And he did that because he is who he is, and he did it by doing it in his own way. And I do hope that that's something that a lot of people can learn from. And I also hope that inspires people who aren't career Washington people, right? Neither of us ever would have been in politics had it not been for our relation to the family, but it pulled us in. We both had careers that were very different. We applied private sector mindset, private sector skills to solving political issues or campaign related issues. And that turned out to be very successful. And so I think that there's a lot that can be done in politics. Again, we have an amazing country. The potential is incredible, but you need citizens of this country to not allow others to do it. You have to step in and really try to take a part in that process, whether it's serving on a local school board or, running for office or working for somebody who's in office. And I think that's how we really can recognize the full potential of our incredible country.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Look, none of us had ever had anything to do with politics before 2015, before June of 2015. Of course, the famous golden escalator ride down to announce that he was running for president. Did you ever see yourself at any point, though, talk about being an outsider and a businessman? I mean, that was you before 2016, before 2017, when you, Ivanka, and your whole family moved to DC. Had you ever thought of it before? Would you have done it had it not been for this?
So the answer is I thought about doing public service. Again, when I was in law school at NYU, I was working at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and I thought maybe I'd want to go and be a prosecutor. I write about some of the events in my life early on that led me to decide that maybe I did want to be a prosecutor. And then I was, working in business in the private sector, and I interacted with a lot of politicians, and to be honest, didn't have a ton of respect for them through those actions. But what I'll say is that watching, Donald and the way he went through this, and then meeting some of the best politicians in the world in Washington, I actually gained a lot of respect for politicians. I say that they're like gladiators in the sense that, for every smart person in Washington, there's like 50 people at home who want their job. They've got to figure out how to, deal with the relentless press, whether you're Democrat or Republican. It's always relentless. How they deal with, trying to get policies done, work with their colleagues. So it is a very, very tough job to do, and to be excellent at it. Again, those people are spectacular. So I left Washington with a lot of respect for them, but you also have to have a myriad of skills. It's not in the private sector, you get something done, that's all that matters. Here you have to get it done, but then also communicate it to people so that they understand and appreciate that you got it done, or else they give it to somebody else. And there's no shortage of people who have complaints, who are willing to make things up or say crazy things to attack. And we saw that time and time again at our time in Washington.
Yeah, we still see it, Jared.
And one of my favorite examples is actually Eric, right? So he had this amazing foundation that I think raised over $25 million for children with cancer. And then the Washington Post starts doing these exposés saying, wait, because they covered the cost of some of the golf club thing, to the tune of like $20,000 or whatever it was, they wanted to shut down his charity. And so, it wasn't like the Clinton Foundation where it was, 96% of the money was going overhead. It had no overhead. It was just, but they attacked it because it was Trump and because they could. And so there's just a lot of examples of just relentlessness that were, quite frankly, very discouraging to see. But the other side of it is you look at all the impact of what, you're able to accomplish through the political process. I see the people whose lives are changed with the peace deals. I saw, all the people who are getting, better jobs, earning more money under Trump. Wages were rising, the wealth gap was shrinking, gas prices were low, and those were things that were pretty amazing and satisfactory to see.
Yeah, and could you imagine, Jared, had all of the accomplishments that happened under the Trump administration not been as great as they were, and then we went into COVID, and then we got the Biden administration and the Democrats basically doing anything they could to go the opposite way of Trump and the hole that we're in right now. I mean, it would probably be a lot worse. I feel like we were very fortunate that America was set up in such a way that we had a little cushion. Now I feel like that's gone. Obviously, look at the gas prices, look at the inflation, look at our standing on the world stage at this point. But you got to give some credit, even his biggest detractors, to the fact that he did accomplish so much, and we were really fortunate going into a time like COVID, such an unknown, scary time, to have all of that, at least under our belts for a while.
Yeah, so one of the things we're very excited about is after Operation Warp Speed, where even Fauci said, a vaccine couldn't be developed in a year and a half. We did it in 10 months. And I said, well, why shouldn't we be able to do warp speed with everything, right? Let's take the top 5 causes of death in the country or in the world, and let's do warp speeds on those. Because what we learned is that there's so much constraints that I think bureaucrats create in their minds. And Trump was a free thinker and basically a bureaucracy buster. And, we thought that a lot more could be done. But power is something globally that's relative. And, because America went into COVID so strong, it had the ability to emerge from COVID so much more separated from the rest of the world. But unfortunately, the policies they put in place have caused, massive inflation, which is going to hurt the global economy. Gas prices are rising. We've lost our energy independence, which is critical for our national security. And then in addition to that, we're also in a situation now where you have a war in Ukraine with Russia, where President Trump was getting along. I read about some of his interactions with President Putin, how he made a big oil deal with him and several other things. And then China's being provocative with Taiwan, stuff that just never happened during Trump's time in office. And North Korea now shooting off weapons. America's on its knees begging Venezuela and Iran for oil when they're canceling the Keystone Pipeline and shutting down drilling here in America. It's really crazy what they're doing. But again, it could be fixed very quickly with good leadership. And I think unfortunate this administration just showed how political they're going to be when they came in the beginning and said, oh, they left us a mess with the vaccines. We left them an unbelievable situation. And but I saw from them that they were going to do that. And then what they're doing now with the Iran deal, where instead of running and doing more peace deals in the Middle East with the Abraham Accords, they're basically on their knees begging Iran to do a deal that's going to make the Middle East less safe than it could be otherwise. So it's just really unfortunate to watch. But like I said, I remain an optimist that hopefully the right leadership will emerge and America will be able to regain that incredible potential that it has.
Well, speaking of the right leadership, Jared, not to just kind of blow the doors off here. Everybody, of course, I'm sure they ask me all the time, will Donald Trump run again in 2024? I mean, you followed him from the campaign trail straight to the White House and the swamp for 6 straight years. If he runs again, and of course, we are saying if here, what do you think he should focus on in his second term to really kind of right the ship here in America? Because it does feel, look, we've just talked about how desperate a situation, I think, for so many people they see us in this country. Like, what would you say to him day one if he runs and wins again?
Yeah, so I think in an upcoming election, whether it's Trump or anyone else, I think the biggest issue should be just global peace. Number one, I think that a lot of these wars have the ability to cause real harm to us here at home. So number one is fixing those situations. I think that's something that can occur. And then number two is just prosperity. I think that there's so much potential here in the American economy. President Trump was bringing a lot of those manufacturing jobs back with the trade deals. And I think that if we continue to make our investments in education like he was, in vocational training, workforce development, I think that you're going to see America really becoming a very strong country. I think securing the border, President Trump had the border basically secured. The wall, he built about 470 miles. I write in my book actually about some of the obstacles that were faced and how he ultimately figured out how to get the wall built. And then in addition to that, the wall was so successful that some of the migratory patterns changed, but now they have record numbers of people crossing, whereas that was secure. So I think those are really probably, three of the big issues that I think would play in. And then, just focusing on American excellence and trying to bring people together. And, there is a myth. I mean, President Trump got about not being able to get things done across the aisle. President Trump got the biggest criminal justice reform done. He got the USMCA trade deal done. Both were big bipartisan achievements. And there's a lot more that could be done to, I think, bring our country together. But they were so desperate to fight him that they just broke every norm in the process of doing it. And quite frankly, they often, when they try to get him, end up helping him. Although I believe it's inadvertent.
Yeah, that's so true. Every time they think they have the smoking gun every time, right, Jared? I mean, I think the funny thing to all of us in the family and those of us who were so involved with things, especially I think back to the Russia collusion hoax, and every time that they would say that something happened with Russia, I'm like, I mean, I know that nothing happened with Russia, but the crazy part is then I started to think, I was like, well, could something have possibly happened with Russia that we didn't know about? The fact that they make us start to question ourselves, or at least for me, really impressed upon me the weight that they carry in the mainstream media, that the folks who, broadcast out whatever they want, no matter the validity of it. But some of it is so crazy. It always helps Donald Trump in the end. It's the most incredible thing. I'm shocked by it.
It's painful to go through. And again,
Yes.
I really tried to write in my book, Breaking History, about what it was like to be accused of collusion with Russia and how we maneuvered through the investigation and what it did to turn people in our administration against each other. And, but it was the same pattern, right? I mean, for 6 years now, they basically have had investigations in search of a crime on Trump. They swung and missed, thankfully, on a lot of things. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty scary about how they've tried to weaponize. I mean, the FBI at that point falsified a FISA warrant to spy on President Trump's campaign. They, leaked to the press to stimulate a special counsel, nonstop leak after leak from the intel community against President Trump. And then you continue to see a lot of, this hyper partisan activity. And now the latest is, President Biden comes out this week saying that, the 75 million Americans who voted for President Trump are a threat to democracy and semi-fascists. I mean, it's really kind of sad. And that's like a couple days after he raids the home of his biggest political opponents. So I think that what we're seeing right now is very, very troubling in that regard. But like I said, I've seen Trump fight through a lot of situations, and I have confidence he'll continue to do so.
No, I agree with you. The only thing that I'll say is, and this I don't feel like gets talked about enough, there are real people that get hurt by all of this. There are people that, have to defend themselves, whose lives are altered in ways that, you never hear about. People that worked on the campaign, I mean, their legal bills because of this nonsense with Russia, et cetera. It has real consequences. And I get that their end goal is that by whatever means necessary, take down Donald Trump. But there are a lot of people, a lot of collateral damage that happens when you do that sort of thing, when you just throw out false accusations and you try and pin a crime on somebody, something that never happened, whatever it might be. And when do those people, though, Jared, get, and I'm sorry from anyone, when do they get their money back? When do they get their life back? I mean, it destroyed a lot of people's lives, this sort of thing that happened.
Don't hold your breath for that. It's it's vicious. What does bother me though is that, again, when we got our criminal justice reform bill done, we had a lot of people on the left who worked with me because they would say that overzealous prosecutors who have endless power, endless resources, and are left unchecked can really harm people. And when it happened to people in America, which I do think it has to a lot of citizens, they were fighting with me hand in hand to try to rectify that. And I think President Trump was so under siege, and seeing the way that they aggressively prosecuted some of his people, that ultimately that opened his heart to seeing that the power really is unchecked, and he supported and then ultimately was the difference maker in getting criminal justice reform done. But all my friends on the left now, when the same thing is happening to the former president, they basically are just quiet on it. And so, there's a total double standard. But I think on like my third day in Washington, I kind of realize that hypocrisy kind of doesn't matter there.
Yeah, no, anything goes. They could kind of pull a screen over anything and make it look however they want to the American people. Well, final question for you, Jared. I feel like I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you have it anyway. Would you ever run for political office? Why or why not?
Yeah. So my great hope is that first of all, the answer is very, 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 very unlikely. I don't see it as something that no interest in doing. I think we've had incredible job, was able to get a ton of things done. But again, I write about in my book a lot of my interactions with President Trump, and when he was the one who had to make the decisions on go to war, not go to war, shoot the missile, not shoot the missile, make the deal, make the I write about the big standoff. I have a chapter called Mexican Standoff, where we're basically on the border with Mexico thinking, how do we get the border closed, and do we do tariffs, not. And he made some incredible decisions, but I think I did a great job as an advisor to him. It was an honor to serve in that regard, but I think now being in the private sector is the best place to be. Yeah. But again, I have so much respect for people who do it. I was hoping you would have done it, but I understand why I think you would have been phenomenal as a senator if you would have decided to run for it. I think you would have won. But I also understand why it's a big toll on your family, and it's tough having all these people say crazy things about you who don't know you.
Yeah.
And I understand why a lot of people don't do it as well. So,
Yeah.
but again, knowing that, like I have some friends now who are running for office, and the amount of respect I have for them and appreciation and gratitude is tremendous, because it is a very, very big sacrifice to make.
It is, absolutely. And thank you. That's very kind of you to say. It's tough. I don't think that, at least for me, I had no idea. I was certainly naive to a lot of what went on in Washington, D.C., certainly all the media scrutiny. I knew that there was a certain amount, but man, nothing really prepares you for, I think, right? Like what we all went through, certainly what Donald Trump has had to go through, that's just a whole nother level. And I think, sadly, it has deterred a lot of great people from ever deciding to get involved in politics. Never say never for any of us, I guess, but I can fully respect your decision on that, Jared. And look, I just want to say thank you. Thanks for taking the time to come on the show and talk about the book. New York Times bestseller. A lot of stories, I think, that probably people would never hear anywhere else, they can get in your book. And congratulations on writing it. I'm sure this is just the beginning of so much more to come from you. You're a star in your own right, and have just so much respect for you. So thank you so much for taking the time to come talk to us today, Jared Kushner.
Thank you, Laura. Really great to be with you, and thank you for being a great sister-in-law and for having me out today.
Oh, thank you. All right. So for everybody, as always at home, we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.